Good evening.
Welcome to Blackrock College.
And welcome to RockEd 2020.
For 160 years, Blackrock College has been inspiring minds that have taken its ethos with them across the four corners of the earth.
So it's no surprise that we have a diverse, entertaining, and thought-provoking set of talks in store for you tonight.
So sit back, relax,
and enjoy.
I think the thing that I enjoyed most is learning how to perfect my essay and how to develop my speech writing skills to make the perfect talk. I learned that public speaking is very important and that you need to know how to speak well in front of crowds, and I think that's a very important skill that you can use in life.
Our Ladies' Corridor is one of the much older parts of the school, completed in 1873. Behind me is a statue of Our Lady, which is over 100 years old. For generations, there has been a tradition of passing students touching the right hand of this beautiful work of art. Senan McCluskey of third year loves art, and he is here to share this with us in his talk, The Art of Origami.
Konnichiwa. Hello, my name is Senan McCluskey, and today I'm here to talk to you about Japan, a beautiful concoction of art, architecture, and culture. A place of serenity and diverse food, Japan has an almost futuristic, simplistic civilization that is bursting with cutting-edge technology and brilliant machinery. The scenery is breathtaking, filled with astounding ruby pink cherry blossoms and beautiful wooden buildings. The thing about Japan is that it's practically untouched by Western cultures and idealisms, making it the perfect example of bare minimalism, accompanied with a palette of rich design and eccentric culture. As you can probably tell, I am properly obsessed with everything Japan. My parents lived in Japan for 6.5 years, and they left the year that I was born. I will never forgive them. However, they did introduce me to a strange paper folding art called origami. Origami derives from two Japanese words, oru, meaning fold, and kami, meaning paper. Speaking of origami history, there's a story in Japanese folklore of a man called Abe no Seimei turning a paper crane into a real-life bird. I myself am almost at this stage of paper folding. However, times have moved on, and instead of making a real bird, I will instead be able to turn an origami mansion into a real house, free of tax. In ancient Japan, origami was only practiced by the elite. As a good luck token for future dangers to be faced, samurais commonly used to present gifts of origami to each other. These gifts were usually a type of ceremonial origami, folded from multiple pieces of paper to make something really cool. They were usually presented along with a strip of dried fish or meat to signify good wishes. Over time, this strip of meat was abandoned and the folded masterpiece itself became the entire gift. Origami is used a lot in the modern age to solve problems that engineers face. For example, in NASA, origami master Robert J. Lang invented a model called the flasher. The flasher can make any large surface compact into a small one, which is ideal for space travel. NASA now uses this genius model in their satellites. However, instead of paper, they make their solar panels fold up compactly, which is ideal for space travel. Because once the satellite breaches the atmosphere, it uncoils its solar panels, and what was once small is now 10 times as big. Origami is also used a lot in modern-day medicine. Scientists are currently trying to invent a pill that has a soft outer membrane. Once swallowed, this membrane dissolves and a microscopic sheet of biochemical properties folds itself into a tiny robot. This robot can accurately pinpoint parts of the body that need healing and can release their powders and then dissolve, meaning that scientists and doctors can accurately reach the parts of the body that need healing. This could be a real breakthrough in medicine. As I said earlier, time really has moved on, and origami with it. Now, instead of making birds and bees and butterflies, people are starting to experiment with things like modular, geometric origami, which is origami that derives from multiple pieces of paper that all come together to make something really quite cool, all the way to intricate, lifelike origami. I adore origami, and at this point I have close to 2 entire shelves in my room covered with different, shall we say, experiments, much to my parents' disappointment and disgust. My mum does have a little box of origami paper in her room. However, this is no ordinary paper. It's the same sort of paper that has a feeling of when you get an A on that really hard test, or when you get an enormous bonus in your company. Yes, it's that good. Anyway, I'm not allowed to use this paper because it's too high quality and brings back too many memories. Don't worry, I'll find a way to use it someday. I think the thing that I love most about origami is the fact that from a single 2D square sheet of paper, you can make something so intricate and beautiful. It's almost like you're breathing life into the model as it morphs into a 3D shape. You need to have a good understanding of maths and geometry whilst designing a model, and even then, the model may not always work out the way you want it to. Japan has a very regimented culture. For example, karate is a precise art where the body is the canvas and the moves you make are precise and perfect, just like in origami. It takes years to master this art, even for some of the masters. Lastly, origami is a paper folding art that takes precision and accuracy to develop pieces. I adore this culture, and I hope that I've made you interested in this amazing country. I would like to end by saying, kite, kurete, arigato. Thanks for listening.
I'd have to say the experience speaking with the RockEd committee, the past pupils and the members of the RockEd committee. My speech started out as something so different from what it ended up as, really. The final product was so different. And I found they had so much insight, so many thoughts that were my own, but they helped me bring these thoughts out onto the page and into the speech, which was extremely important for me, and it was extremely beneficial as well. It gives you an opportunity to voice your own ideas in a way that it's not just casually voicing your own ideas. It is an opportunity to stand up in front of an audience and be strong in voicing whatever idea it is that you're sharing and really getting that point across.
Originally situated at the very centre of the college, and still very much at the heart of our community, the college chapel has provided a space for coming together and reflection since 1869. I think that the designers, Père Leman, Father Ebenrecht, and Brother Eugene Devan would be heartened to know that almost 2 centuries later, Colin Fagan would deliver his talk, My Kenyan Experience.
Most people would assume that someone who comes from a completely different country and cultural background would have very little, if anything, in common with them. I'm sure many of you may think this, and for most of my life I imagined it to be the case too, caused by living in a society more closed off from foreign cultures than I had ever realised. I'm not arguing everyone is the exact same. We're all unique individuals. But I've come to learn that humans, wherever we're from, are more alike than people would expect, and foreign societies mirror ours more than anyone really knows. Take Kenya, for example. It's a beautiful nation in Eastern Africa. It has a vibrant culture, hospitable people, fascinating wildlife, and picturesque landscapes. But even Africa as a whole, most people think of poverty, disease, and corruption. You may have an image of a primitive tribe dancing in a circle area with very little wealth and no earned. While poverty and disease are still sadly prevalent in Kenya, it's important to remember that it is a rapidly developing nation with so much more to offer. I had the chance to go to school in Kenya for a week as part of the TY Immersion programme, which 28 of us went on last February. The focus of the trip was visiting and going to class in Holy Ghost School Machakos for 4 days. This is, of course, a sister school of Blackrock College, which many of you will have heard about. Reaching the school on the first morning, we were warmly welcomed and escorted to the school church for an assembly. Mr. Baraza, the principal, and the staff of 20 teachers introduced themselves to us. Afterwards, it was announced there would be 3 Blackrock boys going to each class. The students there were aged from 13 all the way to 22, across only 4 year groups, equivalent to Irish 3rd to 6th year. I found out myself and 2 of my peers would be going to a class in Kenyan 4th form, which is equivalent to Irish 6th year. During the first class, there was no chat between us and the Kenyans. I was worried. I wasn't sure how any conversation would even be struck up. But once the teacher had left the room, all the lads immediately gathered around us, introduced themselves to us, and just wanted to get to know us. It was at this moment I appreciated how fortunate I was to be on this programme. Through various classes over the following days, we came to know the guys quite well. We spoke with them about our lives and our interests. And I was surprised by the similarities between what we liked. I distinctly remember one experience where myself and a guy in my class named Jesse were passing notes like you might in a school in any part of the world. Jesse was bursting with questions about what life in Ireland was like. So any time he thought of a question, he'd just write it down and then I could write the answer back to him. And this seemingly insignificant experience really showed me how similar I was to this guy in many ways. We both had Xbox games consoles and enjoyed playing games like GTA and Rainbow Six. We both had Spotify and listened to similar music on it. And I suppose I was vaguely expecting the guys there to not be current in their interest for things like music. I thought they'd be listening to African artists I had never even heard of. But when I got there, I was surprised to find that they all listened to current international artists that a lot of people know. Especially for some strange reason, one rapper in particular called Da Baby. I never found out why he was so popular there. He has no real connection to Kenya. I found myself and Jesse also shared a strong interest in acting and cinematography. Although Jesse was into these underground, indie-style filmmakers from places like America that I had never even heard of, I was more mainstream in my tastes, I found. We got on very well with the lads while we were there, but we also had some healthy competition along the way, through plenty of football matches every day after school. We were humbled and forced to accept we didn't quite have the football prowess we thought we did. In fact, our sole football victory on the trip came from a last-minute goal scored right into the bottom left corner against a girls' primary school team. This was a school we were invited to, very kindly, to play a casual, friendly football match against. Football was another interest we shared with the Kenyans. It was simple, and we could enjoy it together between playing it and discussing our favourite teams and premiership matches. I think more than 28 transition years should have gone in the programme. And if possible, people like us, who live in a developed nation like Ireland, should seize any opportunity we get to travel to and immerse ourselves in a developing region. We could truly learn a great deal from such experiences. Through the cultural and personal experiences of mine on the trip, mixing with people my own age from a completely different background, I came to appreciate how similar I really was to many of the Kenyans. And it occurred to me that we live in a society more closed off from foreign cultures than any of us think, like we live in a sort of Western echo chamber. Because our lives, interests, and societies mirrored each other more than any of us had really expected. I will forever remember this experience. And it will always remind me to treat everyone I meet with the respect they deserve. After all, they're probably more like me than I could ever really know. Thank you.
I would definitely recommend taking part in RockEd 2021 to other students. I think it's such a wonderful experience where people can practice their public speaking abilities, and also it's really fascinating to hear other people's stories and to engage in the process.
St. Patrick's Corridor links the old wing to the new wing, symbolising how our past, our school's tradition, connects with the present day. The same can be said for the Olympics, whose traditions reach across millennia. Mark O'Brien is here to tell us more about this with his talk, What We Can Learn from the Olympic Spirit.
Hello, my name is Mark O'Brien, and I'm here to talk today about what we can all learn from the Olympic spirit. Every 4 years, the Olympics rolls around, and billions of us tune in to watch the sporting spectacle. The Olympics often defines a generation's idea of great sports. Take Usain Bolt's legendary domination of the sprint races, Michael Phelps' phenomenal 23 gold medals, Nadia Comaneci's first ever perfect score in gymnastics, and Jesse Owens' historical triumph in Berlin. I, like so many of us, became engrossed in sports. I was an enthusiastic sports guy and ran for my local athletics club. I wanted to compete seriously and was racing at a national level before a long-term illness dashed normality and my sporting hopes for a number of years. It was during this time where I could not physically compete that I became so fascinated and passionate about the Olympic Games, the Olympians that we so revere, and the Olympic spirit that fuses the two. Every Olympian walks in the shadows of those that came before, each one reaching for the greatness of those that came before. Yet that greatness is not merely about sporting achievement and is not reserved only for Olympians. I was fortunate that, even though I lost an opportunity to compete in athletics, I got to walk amongst these Olympians and their ideologies in the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Before I elaborate, let me tell you about two Olympians who took on that Olympic spirit and extended it beyond sport. Their tenacity and drive has had a profound impact on individuals and society's approach to life as a whole. Take Jesse Owens' record-breaking triumph over the Nazi regime in Berlin. He won all 4 events he entered against German athletes on German soil. Here, Owens is chatting with Luz Long, a poster boy for Nazi ideologies. Long, a long jumper, was one of Owens' major competitors as a German athlete and one of the most successful athletes of that time. When Owens fouled his first 2 of 3 attempts in a qualification round, Long, transcending not only the competitive nature of sports, but Nazi ideologies, advised Owens to bring his mark back so that he would jump early and avoid a foul. Owens, heeding his advice, qualified and ultimately won the competition, with Long taking second place. As a black man and the single most successful athlete of the Games, Owens is credited as single-handedly destroying Hitler's myth of Aryan supremacy. At age 18, Muhammad Ali won an Olympic gold medal in the 1960 Rome Olympic Games. Later that decade, he famously refused a military draft for the Vietnam War. He was arrested, found guilty of draft evasion, and stripped of his boxing titles. In an iconic moment in the anti-war movement, Muhammad Ali, formerly known as Cassius Clay, appealed to the Supreme Court, and in the case of Clay versus the United States, had his conviction overturned. He was also a high-profile figure for African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement, and contributed to countless humanitarian and philanthropic causes. He went on diplomatic missions and helped feed an estimated 22 million people. For all his sporting achievements, he is so famous for his work outside of the ring. In his later life, he returned to his Olympic roots and lit the Olympic cauldron in the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games. These are just two of the numerous Olympic athletes whose reach extended beyond sport and acted as a catalyst for peace and equality. Now, here's how their outlook on life and the Olympic spirit that they carry has impacted me. As I said when I was younger, I loved athletics. I still do. And I competed at a national level for my club, Blackrock AC. In 2012, I became quite ill and missed out on years of sports and school. It was tough missing out on something I love so much. Unable to participate, I spent time learning about the Olympics and Olympians. I learned that the principle behind the Olympic Games is not to win, but to take part. Aware of my illness, a friend from my local club arranged for me to borrow the London 2012 Olympic torch. Although I could not compete as an athlete, I realized I could still participate. So I decided to aim to run with the Olympic torch in the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. After much persistence, I managed to realize my dream, becoming the only Irish torchbearer at Olympiad. My dream not only came true, but acted as a motivator during hard times. It gave me so many wonderful opportunities that I could have never anticipated. So we don't all need to be Olympians to strive for our dreams. We can emulate their principles. The founder of the modern Olympic Games, Pierre de Coubertin, founded the Olympics on the basis of equality, regardless of race, religion, culture, or nation. He said, "The most important thing in the Olympic Games is not winning, but taking part. The essential thing in life is not conquering, but fighting well." I may have missed out on years of sports in school, but I found something equally, if not more, important. We all have the ability to strive for our dreams, whether personally or for society. We can take on the examples of people such as Loz Long and step the mark back for others in society and our private lives to help them. By taking on these values, each of us can chase our goals, no matter how big or small they may seem. Even if we don't reach our dreams, we're better because of them. To strive for a better world in life is better than not to try at all. Thank you.
I would have to say what I enjoyed most was the actual night, delivering my speech, because I think there was a lot of nerves building up to the actual event, but actually getting up there and doing it, it just felt great. I'd love to do it again. If next year or the year after, a student has a story, even if they just go to RockEd with the seed, it could really grow into something great.
Completed in 1967, the Creative Arts and Digital Learning Centre houses the work of many revered and celebrated past pupils. Artists and intellects such as Joseph O'Connor, Paul Murray, Tim Pat Coogan, and of course, Brian O'Nolan populate the shelves. O'Nolan, also known as Miles Nagopoulin and Flann O'Brien, is famous for satirizing Irish culture. His acclaimed novel, At Swim Two Birds, documents through a prism of absurd comic brilliance, Dublin, and its wild variety of inhabitants. Unfortunately, today's Dubliners feature a growing demographic of people who are homeless. Mark McCabe, a fifth year, will tell us more with his talk, Homelessness, What We Can Do.
"I'm going to kill myself tonight," was what the man said to me on the streets of Dublin city centre. And what if I said that you, a member of society, could have played a role in stopping that? All it takes is a bit of respect. Now, I used to think nothing of the homeless crisis, but when transition year came around, I got the opportunity to sign up for a soup run. And I must say, the soup run was one of the saddest and most heartbreaking experiences I have had in a long time. I started doing some research, and I found that the number of homeless families has increased by 280% since December 2014. The number of homeless families has increased. More than 1 in 3 people in emergency accommodation is a child. Now, I can't speak for anybody else, but when I heard this, I was shocked and frankly, upset. I came across a brilliant quote by Albert Einstein. "The world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing." And I think this quote perfectly sums up the relationship the homeless community have with the rest of society. Not enough people are trying to help. And I honestly think that we have come dangerously close to accepting the homeless situation as a problem that we just cannot solve. Most people will use the classic, "Oh, what is the government doing about this? They're terrible." But what I think we should be saying is, "Wow, what can I do about this?" Because I'm a strong believer in the philosophy, control what you can't control. If we just sit back and do nothing, then nothing will be done. But if we get up and do something ourselves, it could really start something big. I mean, on the week of the 23rd of December, 2019, there was over 9,700 people homeless in Ireland. And there are people ignoring this? I still can't believe it. I've been going on the super in town to try and help in any way I can. We give them clothes, cups of tea and coffee, sandwiches, chocolate. But most importantly, we have a chat. Because that's what homeless people want. Many of these people used to be valued members of society. Unfortunately, they had some bad luck, whether that be losing their job due to the recession, getting involved with drugs or alcohol, mental health issues, or they had a job, but they could simply not afford accommodation. All of a sudden, their world gets turned upside down. They lose their self-respect by begging on the streets, and they are treated like lesser members of society. How would you feel if this happened to you? Pretty annoyed with society, right? Well, of course you will be. It just isn't fair. A few months ago, we were on the super in town, and we approached a man sitting outside a shop on College Green. A very skinny, middle-aged man, hugging himself to keep warm. A classmate of mine put on a smile and crouched down to offer him some clothes. And we were met with the bluntest reply I've ever heard in my life. "Well, I only have until February to live, so there's not much point, is there? I'm going to kill myself tonight." This blew us away. It turned out the man had cancer, but he did not even want to fight anymore. People walked by, ignored him, shouted at him, and even spat on him, all while he is freezing and starving on the street. And again, this man did not fit any of your typical stereotypes. He had a family and a mortgage. He was a carpenter living out in Tala. And one day his wife and daughter died in a car crash. He then fell into a state of depression, lost his job, ended up on the streets, and was fed up with people treating him as if he wasn't even a living being. It's all a downward spiral with no help. Through tears, he confessed to us that his plan for the night was to kill himself. A man who used to be a valued member of society was planning on taking his own life because he got unlucky and nobody cared, but actually tried to make him feel worse. Maybe if people treated him with respect, he would not have been suicidal. Of course, we tried to talk the man out of killing himself, and we think it worked, but I have not seen him since. I hope he's on the road to recovery. I would like to finish with asking a favour. One of the core values of the college is to be there, and we are asked to be there when others need us. Please, please live out the values of the college. Be there for homeless people. This does not mean giving out charity or soup, but to be truly present with attention and respect. Be there for homeless people, whether that be chatting to them, giving them food, or even smiling at them. Look, we all go through tough times. Anything helps, and we have no idea what difference it makes to them. Thank you.
Well, I think I really just enjoyed making a speech that was really just interesting to me and just being able to talk about something that I really genuinely did find very fascinating. Well, I think I learned a lot about the whole speech writing process. Having been part of RockEd last year, I'd already been somewhat clued into the whole many different drafts of it and really just kind of chewing down to the bone in terms of what you want to say. And also in terms of just the actual public speaking itself, I think definitely I can notice, even compared to last year, that my confidence levels are definitely higher, which always helps getting up on stage in front of that many people. I think it's a really rewarding experience. Like, obviously it is very challenging, as you do have to really chew down to the bone on your speeches, but I think there's no better feeling than walking off that stage after delivering your talk, after having worked on it for so long.
The new wing, completed in 2007, not only contains classrooms for the senior students at Blackrock College, but also top-of-the-range science labs. The study of the mind is its own complex science, and something 5th year's Michael Weiss wishes to discuss further with his talk on dreams.
The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. How many of you have ever dreamed? All of you, right? Dreams are something that unite us all through a shared experience, as we all dream. Dreams are weird and wonderful, some realistic, such as talking to a dead family member or friend, while others are more abstract. We have all had these types of dreams. I know I certainly have. During quarantine a few months ago, cooped up in my home, I began to have these incredibly vivid, strange and random dreams. I'd say some of you can relate, as I think quarantine made all of us go a bit crazy in our own ways. With our minds suddenly flooded with the exact same stimuli day after day, surely they have to find a way to entertain themselves, right? And that's why I'm here doing this talk today. These incredibly weird, vivid and random dreams got me thinking about the psychology behind dreams, and if we can derive any meaning from them. My thinking was that since my everyday life had become so boring, mundane and uninteresting, my brain was coming up with these radical dreams to insert some sort of stimulus into my life and stop me from going insane. I had never dreamed so intensely and frequently before in my life, so this had to be the reason, right? Another possible reason could be the inevitable stress of living through a pandemic. Well, I'll attempt to address this in a few minutes. But first of all, what are dreams? Dreams are successions of images, ideas and sensations that occur involuntarily in the mind during certain stages of sleep. During REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, the brain is dominated by very fast brain waves, which are the same as when you're awake and contrast with the slow brain waves of non-REM sleep. Most scientists agree that everyone dreams for about 2 hours every night, whether or not we are remembered upon waking. Now that we've dealt with the boring scientific side of dreams, let's talk about the really interesting questions, such as, why do we dream? Well, there has been no one definitive study as to why we all dream. Several theories have obviously circulated. Dreams fulfill our wishes. We dream to remember. We dream to forget. We dream to keep our brains working, use it or lose it. We dream to heal. And we dream to solve problems, sleeping on it. The theory that we dream to fulfill our subconscious wishes was first made by Sigmund Freud, and I found it very interesting. It made me think, perhaps by analysing what exactly we are dreaming about, we can gain a greater insight into our unconscious minds. He described 2 different components of dreams: manifest content and latent content. The manifest content is the actual images and sensations within the dream, whereas the latent content represents the hidden psychological meaning. By analysing the manifest content of our dreams, we can decipher the true meaning, the latent content. An easy way to explain it would be, over quarantine, I had a dream that I had spoons for hands, don't ask why. The manifest content is the actual having spoons for hands, whereas the latent content is the fact that I love food. Now, back to the subject of these strange, vivid coronavirus quarantine dreams that everyone seemed to be having. At first, I have to admit, I thought it was just me going a little bit insane, until I began seeing people my age talking online about experiences similar to mine. Dreams the sort of wish they had never had before, and neither had I. I then read a Time magazine article, this one, back in May, that further solidified this theory. People were dreaming weirder and remembering these weird dreams better. It wasn't just me, it was people around the world in the same situation as me, cooped up inside with nothing to do. I then did a bit more research online about the whole coronavirus quarantine dreams, and I found a theory that suggested that due to the lack of inspiration in our daily lives, our brains are forced to draw on themes from our past or whatnot. I was then drawn into a different theory, Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious. a sort of universal psyche that we're all tied into that gives us things such as our universal phobias, heights, planes, spiders. He said that dreams are one of the main ways of accessing the collective unconscious, and similarly to Freud, said that dreams are filled with symbolism that ties into our unconscious minds. If the collective unconscious does exist, then this would explain the weird dreams, right? Just this year, thousands have become unemployed, suicides and mental health issues are on the rise, as are domestic abuse rates. Let's face it, this year hasn't been the best, and no doubt the collective unconscious will have taken a hit too. I think this theory holds a lot of weight, as I don't think it's a coincidence that we're dreaming weirder during such a stressful time. Maybe the collective unconscious recognizes the seriousness and potential future historical significance of the time we live in. In fairness, the amount of sleep I was getting certainly didn't help my case either, as the longer you sleep for, the more vividly you dream, and I was getting more than 11 hours sleep every night. Overall, I think we can all agree that dreams are an incredibly interesting topic, as they unite us all through a shared experience. Hopefully, in the years to come, we can develop technology that will allow us to better analyze dreams, giving us an insight into our unconscious, perhaps revealing hidden, buried emotions, thoughts, and feelings. Maybe the collective unconscious does exist. Or maybe it's just the ramblings of a scientist who isn't getting enough sleep. Or maybe it's just me being bored over quarantine. But either way, we're not quite there yet. Until that day, just keep dreaming. Thank you.
I think I most enjoyed working as a group with other RockEd speakers. It was really interesting every time that I'd deliver my speech. I'd also get to see how other people were developing, and I thought that all the speeches were really interesting. And by the end of it, I had a great sense that we were all working together as a group of speakers, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I'll definitely remember the night of RockEd, especially the lead up beforehand where all the speakers were together talking about their speeches, rehearsing together, and that was a great memory, I think.
Sean O'Connor of 5th year spent 2 weeks helping in Our Lady's Manor nursing home as part of the school's Matthew 25 pastoral placement. It was, he tells us, a challenging yet rewarding experience. Inspired by the many conversations he had with both residents and nurses alike, Sean is here tonight to discuss the isolation of the elderly and the crucial importance of help in their lives.
I've never quite considered myself to be the charismatic type. Now, I don't mean to be too hard on myself. I have other skills. But I've just noticed that my skills never seem to come in handy in social situations. I'll give you an example. Apparently, it's weird to break the ice with a pop quiz on chess openings. I've been told that small talk is not my strength. So when Mr. Madden, as part of the school's Matthew 25 programme, sent me to Our Lady's Manor nursing home to mingle with the elderly, I saw a few logistical problems. I would spend the next 2 weeks maintaining conversation with strangers from a completely different generation. Now, I wasn't going to walk into this unprepared. So before I went, I actually spent some time rehearsing normal conversations. Alone in my room with myself. Eventually, the first day rolled around, and I realized I didn't need to do any preparation. In fact, I got on surprisingly well. For some strange reason, when I was inside Our Lady's Manor, conversation was easy. And more than that, I found myself enjoying the conversations that I had. One of my most memorable experiences there was meeting a retired mathematics professor from Cavan. He was incredibly intelligent, but also had a great sense of humour, and we instantly got on. We had a brilliant conversation about maths, life, and everything in between, and I mentioned this conversation to one of the sisters that worked there. Once I told her, she seemed delighted, and she responded with something that changed my perspective on the whole 2 weeks. She said that it was great that I talked to him, because he wouldn't have had much contact with the outside world. Now, I didn't quite understand what she meant at first, but I thought back to the situation he was in. His condition required 24-hour care, so he was forced to retire from a job that he loved. And few people visited him because many of his relatives and friends had passed away. I had grown to respect this man as incredibly friendly and talented, so it was a shock for me to learn that he felt so isolated from the world. I realized why conversation was easy for me in Our Lady's Manor. Many of the residents felt lonely and isolated. So when I talked to some of them, it was easy for me because they were so eager to just have any conversation. When I wrote this speech, I didn't want to just raise awareness about elderly isolation. I think we're all aware of the problem. And yet over 45% of our elderly population suffers from loneliness. I don't think that this is just a problem of a lack of awareness, or even a lack of action. Perhaps we're not acting in the right ways. I think many elderly people feel isolated not because they don't receive enough help. It's that they're deprived of the privilege to give help. If you want someone to trust you, the first thing you should do is not actually help them. You should get them to help you. It might sound a bit strange at first, but it's a very well-known con trick. Very often when someone comes up to you trying to scam you, they'll first ask for directions, or they'll ask for the time. Because once you've helped them, even in some small way, you feel connected with them, and you're more likely to trust them. Now, you might be wondering why I'm telling you how to scam people. Well, the first reason is because I know that some of the students here want to study law, and I just thought that would be applicable. But besides that, I think this information goes far beyond con tricks. It tells us something about how we connect with other people. And countless scientific studies have backed up this fact, that the most important part of human connection is giving. My favorite part of Our Lady's Manor was talking to residents at the coffee shop, because every time, without fail, they offer to buy you biscuits or tea or cake. Now, I'm a huge fan of cake, but after about 1 week of non-stop cake, I actually began to get sick of it. And that's when I started to realize something. When an elderly person offers to buy you cake, they're actually not offering. It's a lot more like a hostage situation, really. No matter how much you beg to not eat it or insist that you're full, you will end up eating the cake. The residents of Our Lady's Manor were certainly keen to give things, and not just in the coffee shop. They loved telling a story, or offering life advice, or sharing a joke. I was reminded of this generosity when I was researching human connection. Like I said, the most important part of human connection is giving. So when you lose the ability to give back, or more importantly, when people don't let you, then you begin to feel disconnected. When you imagine an elderly person, do you think of someone who's active and empowered, or someone who's inactive and helpless? It can be easy to take pity on the elderly, but our view of this group as dependent is ultimately harmful. If we believe the elderly can't help us, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy in our actions, legislations, and innovations. With our current view of the elderly, what do you think is the goal of our innovations for them? Is it empowerment or comfort? Growing old is a challenging time. Retiring from your job, the death of loved ones, and the loss of mobility can leave people feeling tragically isolated. And although these are challenges of life which we can't control, our perception of the elderly makes contribution even harder, and that's something we can change. If we change the way we look at the elderly, and instead see the group for their opportunity in enthusiasm, wisdom, and experience, then we can break down these perceptions which have isolated so many people. I believe that the best thing we can do is not just help the elderly, but allow them to help us. Thank you.
Well, I learned better how to research more topics and not look like you don't know what you're talking about in front of a live audience, which is very helpful.
You really tame your ability to speak. I mean, some people can either struggle to speak, or if they can sometimes ramble on for very long periods of time. But RockEd really helps you to sort of breach the gaps and get your ability to speak right on tee, which is a very useful skill.
I'd have to say the preparation was probably incredibly fun, but actually going up there on the night and doing it, it was completely thrilling, and I would love to do it again at some point.
Well, I quite enjoyed working with everyone, and there are some really fantastic people who helped, so I will have memories of kind of being interrogated for my speech and having it fixed week over week.
I would definitely recommend taking part in RockEd 2021 to all students, really, irrespective, just to, even if you don't think you'll make it or are terrible at public speaking, like, just to sort of pick something that you enjoy or just are mildly fascinated in and talk about it, I think is a really valuable and worthwhile experience.
It was incredibly fun. The whole air and manner about everyone participating was just trying to help you get better at talking about the things that you love, rather than just being forced to learn about something in history that you might not care about, or some random rock in geography. It's something you genuinely are passionate about, and you get to explain that to other people.
Built to mark the Golden Jubilee of 1910, for over 100 years, the Jubilee Hall has been a place of ritual, ceremony, and theatre. It is indeed a place of performance, and Dr. Tom Tracy knows all about performance. So here he is tonight to talk about masks and their power.
Masks are being worn all around us. I don't mean the protective face masks we've all been asked to wear during the current COVID pandemic. This global crisis has merely reawakened our awareness of masks. Something else lay dormant, because when you really think about it, the wearing of masks goes way back, deep into human history. And they emerge alongside the beginnings of society itself. And we continue to wear masks even today in one way, shape, or form. So, what do masks do? What are their uses? Well, some say that a mask permits us to be whatever we want to be, to impose upon its surface our innermost traits, desires, and fantasies. A mask, then, is what you make it, a bit like a Rorschach blot. Others say that masks imbue the wearer with powers and animate suppressed instincts we would not otherwise express. Masks are totemic. They emanate an object energy and subtly possess the wearer. A bit like Dutch courage, a mask can remove our inhibitions. Now, we conventionally think that masks are used to disguise the wearer's identity, as on Halloween. But actually, the opposite can be true. Think of when Bruce Wayne dons the mask of the Dark Knight to become Batman in order to protect his civilian identity from the ruthless criminals of Gotham. Looked at from a different perspective, it's quite possible that Bruce Wayne's billionaire playboy image is just another persona constructed to protect his ulterior nature, a victim turned vigilante, obsessed with justice. Or possibly Bruce and Bats are both, let's say, performances. And because of the performative element around masks, we tend to think that when one dons a mask, one need not be entirely honest, as there's little chance for self-perjury. And yet, our very own Oscar Wilde said, "Give a man a mask, and he will tell you the truth." Well, truth be told, masks and other artistic personae allow poets and visionaries to speak openly, honestly, and critically about what they see as the hypocrisies of the societies they live in, without fear of censure or indeed censorship. In our own time, the stratospherically popular street artist Banksy has echoed these sentiments, saying, if you want to say something and have people listen, then you have to wear a mask. Going back to classical antiquity, the Greek and Roman dramatists were unafraid of expressing their emotions, deploying stock character masks to express tragedy and comedy side by side. And the Renaissance humanists picked up where the ancients left off. This is Lorenzo de' Medici, patron to the great Leonardo da Vinci. It's telling from this commissioned portrait that Lorenzo was not just deeply invested in the dramatic arts, but when you observe his very mask-like face set beside the theatrical props, the image discloses something about the various roles that Lorenzo would have played, whether as political power broker or philanthropic don. So it's fair to say the roles we play are the masks we wear. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said, every profound spirit wears a mask. Even more, around every profound spirit, a mask is continually growing. Such ideas can take more than one direction. The depraved corruption of Nietzsche's vision of self-mastery, the Übermensch or Overman by Hitler and the Nazis, led to a sinister period in European history. But it also led to this. Superman, I mean, of course, the Kryptonian Kal-El, who flips the notion of identity disguise on its head. He conceals his inhuman power and strength with a pretense of modesty and humility, not to say weakness. Here upon Earth, Superman has to fit in with regular folk, with ordinary people. As good old Nietzsche put it, mediocrity is the most effective mask a superior spirit can wear. And so we present Clark Kent, Daily Planet reporter, who wears the mask of mediocrity with aplomb, conventional office attire, and a pair of nerdy black frames. Ironically, Superman upholds the human values of fortitude on his adopted planet, not with a show of force, but as an exemplar of restraint, measure, moderation, self-control. These virtues earn Kal-El his human citizenship. It's a powerful idea, but one which the Man of Steel can only embody by assuming a mask of fragility. Behind every such mask is a deep idea. And importantly, like Superman, ideas are bulletproof. Now, like the S on Superman's chest, which actually refers to the Kryptonian symbol for hope, as opposed to S for super, masks can come to stand for something more than their initial signification. And they can evolve into something more than a symbol. They can pass into myth and legend. One fine example of this is the mask-wearing Dread Pirate Roberts from William Goldman's novel, The Princess Bride. In the novel, we're initially led to believe that the main protagonist, a poor farm boy called Wesley, has molded himself into the notorious pirate of the Dread Seas. Of the high seas, indeed. It turns out that each Dread Pirate Roberts has in fact abducted and put into service a different abductee, who the previous Dread Pirate Roberts had likewise been abducted and put into service into the same role. The idea is that each Dread Pirate Roberts takes on a new abductee so that he can retire from the role at a reasonable age, enjoy his ill-gotten wealth, and let the next man take over the swashbuckling duties. A mask makes the impersonation easier. A tradition is thereby set in motion. And apart from being an arch joke about postmodern identity, Wesley's tale of Russian doll-style lineage makes an astute point about how a symbol can foster a tradition that finally passes into legend. I'd like to finish with a tale of community passion. In June 2017, my partner and I were on the last day of our holidays in Turin. As chance should have it, Juventus were playing in the Champions League final. Because of the incredible buzz around the city, we decided to spend our few remaining hours hanging out in the main square to soak up the atmosphere. The city was awash with black and white, flags, banners, jerseys everywhere. Here's me with some of the fans. As we walked through the shaded porticos of the square, I noticed a bearded old homeless man lounging indolently on the paving. He was well placed to beg crumbs from the crowd. As I looked down, awaiting the predictable outstretched hand for spare change, something remarkable happened. Instead, he met my look with a wily twinkle in his eye, and steadily returning my gaze, he raised his hand in a gesture like this. My heart skipped a beat. The gesture gave me tingles, sending a shiver of recognition down my spine. It was, of course, none other than the now infamous Dybala mask, a celebratory gesture used by the prodigious young striker Paulo Dybala whenever he scored a goal for Juventus. I realized at that moment just what the football club meant to the citizens of Turin, from the highest held office down to the lowliest vagrant. It spoke volumes about whatever we mean by unity in community, held together by a common devotion. The Juventus motto is Fino alla fine, which is loosely translated as to the very end, or right to the wire. It's the epitome of dogged perseverance and never say die mindset. I knew the beggar was offering me something that words alone could not voice. You can knock us over. You can kick us when we're down. But you will never break our spirit. You'll never quench our fire. And though some of us are in the gutter, all of us together are looking at the stars. This message needed a symbol. This motto needed a mask. And for me, the visual power of Dybala's salute lay in its almost primitive simplicity, a finger and thumb perched on the bridge of a nose. At first, it looks like a gesture of highway banditry or a nod to the scarfed ultras who antagonize opposition support. But later, I discovered it has quite a different meaning. Here is Paulo in his own words. Life brings its fair share of problems and struggles. We have to move forward like gladiators do. Often, when we're fighting, we need to put on a warrior mask to feel stronger, while at the same time keeping a smile and kindness. We've been fighting our own fight lately against a foe more formidable than many of us have ever faced before. But maybe we can learn something from a beggar's gesture, someone who knows the brutal meaning of daily struggle. Maybe now is time to don our own gladiator masks as a show of resilience and courage, and to stand together by staying apart. I'm Spartacus, and you're Spartacus, and you're Spartacus too. All of us are Spartacus. That's what unity is. That's what community is. We already know that not all heroes wear capes. Some wear scrubs and gowns. But I can tell you this with certainty. All of them do wear masks. Thank you.
RockEd is something that we should have always had. You watch TEDx and you see people talking about things that they're very passionate about for 20 minutes or 18 minutes or 15 minutes, and you look at that and you just say, wow, that people are interested in something and they make it interesting and you say, wow, that's something our fellas should be doing. And I think it's a natural for a school such as Blackrock, we're so big in the arts, we believe we are so big in the arts, and it's so important for us, and it's just a natural fit for our youngsters. RockEd, no doubt, builds community because it takes boys from different year groups and puts before them an opportunity, a chance to do something different, a chance maybe to share with others something they're interested in, a chance to be part of a team, a chance to work with adults in a different way, a chance to be mentored, a chance to see other kids doing well, a chance to work with 5th and 6th years. It's just an essential. To me now it's an essential. And it was an ambition for the last 4 or 5 years to have it as part of our program. But the key was not having the kids to do it, was having the leaders to do it, to have those mentors. And I think that is a major part of this. This coming together of parents, of past students, of current students, of teachers, and saying, this is something that really makes a difference and is special. Definitely would recommend as many as possible. It's not for everybody, just as the musical is not for everybody, the SET is not for everybody, badminton is not for everybody, so it's not for everybody. But it's an opportunity that everybody can aspire to, because I think it's such an important skill, having the confidence and the composure to get up and stand up and talk. And it's such an important basic skill, which everybody has to use at some time in their life. Maybe it's at their wedding, maybe it's in court, but you've just got to be able to do this. And I think it's so important. And to put this opportunity for youngsters, the opportunity to speak out, to tell people about yourself, and not directly about yourself, but you're telling about yourself when you're talking about things you're interested in. I think that's so important, that self-expression, that sharing of self, and having the confidence and, as I say, composure to do it. It brings a hell of a lot.
Well, what an evening this has been.
A tour of the campus and some interesting talks.
We wish to thank you all for watching, but now, unfortunately, it is time for us to bring it to a close.
Hopefully you can join us next year for RockEd 2021.